Let me show you why they don't like Gaddafi. America, look at the song. From the halls of Montezuma to the shores of Tripoli. Stop. What the hell are you doing in Tripoli? We will fight our country's battles on the land and on the sea. You ain't fighting your country's battles. You fighting corporate greed's battle. Now let me see why you were in Tripoli. See, Tripoli and Libya and Nigeria have the sweetest crude oil in the world. Oh-ho-ho. Now when you put oil in the equation, and whoever controls oil controls the medium of power. That's right. And whoever controls oil rules. That's right. Yes, sir. America had her bases in Tripoli. Yes. The British had bases in Tripoli. Yes, sir. There was a king in Libya called King Idris. He got a royalty as long as the British and the Americans was pumping the oil. Hey, it's okay. But Colonel Gaddafi had a bloodless coup and took over. He was a young man. I think he was in his 20s. But he was a visionary. First thing he did, he kicked the British out. Yes, took their base, put it out. Yes, then he got the American base out of Libya. Yes, then he nationalized the oil. Now he's in deep trouble with the West. Right. So now they're going to say, well, he's a terrible fella, he's a terrorist. Okay, let me see what he did. The man took oil money and raised the standard of living of every Libyan. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. The country was revolutionized. That's right. Then the excess oil money, he sponsored revolution. That's right. If your regime was a wicked regime, he didn't feel your regime should exist if it controlled the masses and was wicked, so he funded revolution all over the world. And who was hurt by that? The same bloodsuckers of the poor who are killing poor people all over the earth. They cried out. The British cried out. The number one bloodsucker of the world, the British. Wait a minute. Say, Farrakhan, your language is rather harsh. A bloodsucker is a leech. It lands on you and sucks your life and gives you nothing in return. I think that's an apt description. Bloodsuckers of the poor. America running to try and be number one. Now they're both angry with Gaddafi. Yes, sir. Gaddafi backed the Irish Republican Army. Did you know that? Yes, sir. You didn't know that? No, sir. Yeah, the Irish fighting against the British. Gaddafi backed the Irish. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Gaddafi backed the Muslims in Mindanao in the Philippines. Gaddafi backed those who fought against corrupt regimes in Africa. Gaddafi backed them. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Gaddafi loaned the Honorable Elijah Muhammad $4 million so he could buy our flagship mosque. Gaddafi would have loved to have gotten us involved in revolutionary activity, but I told the brother, I said, Brother Gaddafi, I said, Farrakhan is a revolutionary. I said, but I'll make mine with the Quran. I don't need weapons. He told his people, leave Farrakhan alone. Farrakhan know where he's going. I don't go to nobody without an agenda.
Go ahead.
I don't go to somebody to give me an agenda. I have an agenda. I don't need nobody to give me something. And I refuse to be a prostitute. You can't offer me money and then make me do your bidding. I'm not a whore. And I told them in the Middle East, when you want a whore, you go buy one. But Farrakhan is not that. I will never bow down to any outside force that don't care nothing about your life but want to use your miserable condition so they can ride into power on the back of your suffering. Hell no, that will never happen as long as I'm alive. They loaned us $5 million. And then they asked us to do things that were not right. Yes, sir. I said, man, $5 million ain't spit. Come on. I said, man, you can't make a tree grow with spit. Come on. It's going to take billions of dollars to free black people, so don't loan me $5 million and think you got a boy here. Hell no. The problem with most of our leaders is that they are whores. Well, you know what a whore is. That's in the dictionary. Why do you think our leaders can't sit down with Farrakhan in the day? They'll meet me by night. How we admire you, Farrakhan. Doing a great work, Farrakhan. But you can't come out and walk with me in the day because your money is coming to you from white philanthropists who don't like Farrakhan. So you can't even sit down with me and plan the future of our people. But I'm determined to free you from that. You will not be a whore and lead our people. Oh, that's good cold water. Thank you. Now, 10 years after, Brother Gaddafi saw the Million Man March on television. He said, oh, Farrakhan is right. He is going to do it with the Quran.
Yes, sir.
When he saw nearly 2 million black men on the mall in Washington, he knew what that was. He knew there's hardly a nation on this earth that has an army of 2 million. Even the superpowers don't have that. And the Bible has it perfect in the 37th chapter of Ezekiel. The dry bones were in the valley, but the Son of Man had to talk to them, and then the winds had to blow on them, and then they stood up an exceedingly great army. That's what you got to understand. An army stood up. And those overseas, they saw that. They said, my God, there's potential power in America to change certain realities. You are more than who you think you are. You're not the foolish nincompoop that they make you believe you are. You are the people of God. You say, well, how can I be God's people as wicked as I am? Come on. Now that's a good question. Yes, sir. But look, did God choose the children of Israel? Yes, he did. Yes, he did. What did the 10 Commandments look like? Thou shalt not commit adultery. Well, evidently they were doing it. Thou shalt not steal. Evidently they were stealing. Thou shalt not bear false witness against thy neighbor. Evidently this was a heck of a wicked people. But God saw beneath their wickedness. Like you sing the song in the church, he saw beyond my faults. He saw my need. And beyond all your faults, black man and woman, there's divine in you. Yes, sir, that's right. We just have to remove the rubbish from you and bring out your qualities. That's right. God is calling on the best part of you. That's right. Well, when Gaddafi saw the nearly 2 million, he called me on the telephone. He found me in Washington. I was surprised when I picked up the phone. It says, Brother Gaddafi. Yes, sir. And he was so excited, I couldn't even recognize his voice. Usually he talks very slow. Deep. But this time his voice was in the ceiling. Brother Farrakhan, brother. So I had to listen real close. I said, maybe this is not the real deal. He said, I saw the 1 million man march. He said, I am ready to put the wealth of Libya behind the nation of Islam. Now, the next day, I had a press conference. One of the members of the press asked me, we understand that you got a telephone call. How did you know that? From Gaddafi. What did he say? I said, well, if you know I got a telephone call, you know what he said. Now, my aides, they're more alert in certain respects than I, because when he said he would put the whole wealth of Libya behind me, I said, oh, thank you very much. And assalamu alaikum, you know what I mean? And we hung up the phone. The brother said, wait, man. What are you doing, Farrakhan? See, Farrakhan is not the money man. I do what I do because I love to do what I do. Money don't have anything to do with this. But my aide said, brother, if he said that, we need to take him up on that. Thank God for AIDS. No, not that kind. Oh, Akron. But listen, shortly thereafter, I went to Libya. When I got to Libya, they had a red carpet. They had the soldiers in a full battle to give me a welcome like a head of state.
Yes, sir. Wow.
Brother Gaddafi seriously talked about the empowerment of black people, the empowerment of Muslims,
Yes, sir.
and the empowerment of poor people in America. Now, when he said, I will back you with the wealth of Libya, that's more than $1 billion.
Right. That's right.
But he did mention in a speech he would give from $100 million to $1 billion. Okay. Now, the government got excited. Hey, we cannot let Farrakhan get that money. They went into Congress and tightened the laws. Listen to this. So that this poor man couldn't give me money if he wanted to. Then the Justice Department, the Treasury Department, they've been on my case ever since I went over. And every time I come back in the country, they're searching my bags. They think I got $1 billion in there. You know what I mean? They would like to make you think that Farrakhan would use $1 billion to buy guns. Hell, if I could get this far without a gun, I can go all the way. I don't need a gun. I don't need guns. I need God. God is the gun. Oh, $1 billion. I started thinking of all the good that we could do with $1 billion. I said, man, we could leverage $1 billion into $10 billion.
All right, come on with it.
And since we get $438 billion out of the American economy, with that leveraging of $1 billion, we could prime the well of what we spend.
All right. Yes, sir.
And if we could attract just 10% back into our community, that's $43 billion. Then when you ask, where's your schools? Where's your hospitals? Where's your farms? Where's your factories? Then we could point to them. I don't need $1 billion for myself. I dress well, you can see. I ride well, have nice cars, live in a nice home, Mr. Muhammad's palace. It's not mine. Man, you can't take it with you anyway when you go. So I don't need $1 billion for me. And I can't will $1 billion to my children. I wouldn't even think of that. That thought don't enter my mind. Because if my children don't believe as I believe, to hell with them. I wouldn't give them smoke from a cigarette. I will never give the wealth of the believers back to some non-believing children just because they're my children. No, if they don't believe like I believe and work for the liberation of black people, they ain't worth a damn to me. And they know that. All my children with me, though. I got to say that. Thanks to my wife, she trained them well. But she knows my sentiment. I love my children, but I don't love them if they don't love working for black people. Because every morsel of bread that they put in their mouth, I would tell them when I fed them from babies, you got this from the poor people who gave your father enough money to buy you bean soup.
Yes, sir.
So when you get old, you work for the poor.
Yes, sir.
Do you understand me?
Yes, sir.
When I sent them to college, your tuition was paid by the poor. So when you get your education, you bring it back and you work for the poor. How many of you live your life, work hard, get some money, and will it to a fool? You got these no good, dope head children. You work all your life, get your cleaners, got business, money in the bank, and here's your son, can't wait for you to die. Can't wait to get in the bank account. Then because he's a dope head, all your life work squandered in 6 months. Why would you will what you work for to something no good just because it's your son? Hell no. You will it to the community, and those that love the community work your business in your name. My family is just not my family if you're not of my spirit.
All right.
You say, where's that in the book? I bring the book on you.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
That's right.
Walk in that word.
Noah had a son. And when God told Noah, go in the ark, his son said, I betake myself to the mountains. And Noah kept pleading for his son, and God got sick of it. Told him, I know best who is your son. He said, that is not your son. He is the embodiment of evil. No righteous man has a son from the loins that is his son if he's not his son from the spirit.
All right. All right.
Yeah, you mine from the loins. I can understand that. But you're not mine if you're not mine from here and from here. My whole life is for the people.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
I don't care to live. If I can't work to make your life better, then my life means nothing. So I want my children to be like their father.
Yes, sir.
Work for the rise of your people.
Yes, sir.
Live and die for the rise of your people. Then your living shall not have been in vain.
Yes, sir.
Okay, let's close this out. The Treasury Department said to me, Farrakhan, you better not try to sneak any money in the country. Because if it comes through a third source, we're going to get you for money laundering. Can you imagine a government telling me that? This government ain't worth a damn. You hear me? I don't like to use that kind of language, but I wish they would bring me before the Congress.
Come on.
The American people really need to be free
That's right. That's right.
from something like that that parades itself as a government. I got to tell you, man. Here's a government that tells me that I got freedom of religion. I'm a Muslim. Muslims all over the world
That's right.
are my family. I got 1,400,000,000 brothers and sisters.
Yes, sir.
Plus I got nearly 1,000,000,000 Christians.
All right.
That's my family. if you understand. Now, the government is not supposed to make any law respecting religion. And I have freedom of association. I'm not a terrorist.
No, sir.
You got my record. I don't bother nobody. And because he finances revolution around the world, that's him. You deal with him on that, not with me. That's my brother. I told him that stuff wouldn't work. I told him.
Yes, sir.
I did. I said, brother, I got a better way to do this. Yeah. I said, brother Gaddafi, look, why don't you use this wealth and set up a factory that produces the inoculations that the West is inoculating Africa with, that have contaminants in it that's giving our people AIDS, cancer. I said, why don't you set that up? And you become the savior of Africa, since Africa is dying of AIDS, and an African scientist developed something that we believe could be a cure for it. Why don't you produce it and spread it all over Africa? Then you don't have to spread guns. The love of the people will be with you. Well, anyway, he can take that advice or leave it, as I can accept his advice or leave it. But the offer of $1 billion, see, if it's made in good faith, we ought to pressure the government, since you cut off welfare, you cut off entitlements, you cut off affirmative action, then we ought to tell the government, look here, that's our money. Because it's not for me, I'm just a conduit. It is for the empowerment of blacks and Muslims in America. Now, do you need power?
Yes, sir.
Huh?
Yes, sir.
Well, I'm going after the money.
All right.
No. Not for the money, for the principle. The principle is this. You say I'm constitutionally protected as a citizen.